Hello, you lovely cubs. It's the Dragon Lord here, back again with another What If. Now, today we are doing part 8 and the second to last part of What If Tanjiro was Kokushibo's son. Now, this part is probably gonna end right before the final arc. I would say the final personalized arc, because it's gonna be changed up a lot. But, it's gonna leave you guys thinking like, oh, is the next part gonna end fast? Next part is actually gonna be quite big. I don't exactly know how long yet because I still have to finish writing it up, but there's gonna be a lot in the next part. So if you guys like that, like and subscribe. And if you're new around here, why not join the Discord? It's in the description, as well as my Roblox group, which we just released a new merch bundle. It's so far one piece, and well, also a new pants piece, because, finalized. But it looks pretty good. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into it.
I'm up now, 20,000 on a bus down, I'm on my way up, going up now, and I ain't never gonna touchdown. I ain't never gonna touchdown. No, I ain't never gonna touchdown.
Everyone arrived back at the Demon Slayer HQ, where Tanjiro proposed another Hashira training to Ubuyashiki, voicing his concerns. Ubuyashiki was also going to propose another training, as he explained his premonition. The other Hashira who were present all started asking questions to Muichiro, Shinobu, and Mitsuri, as they were the only ones present at the battle with the Upper Moons beside Tanjiro. Muichiro and Shinobu gave detailed explanations of their fights, whilst Mitsuri more or less just stumbled on her words. Considering Ubuyashiki's premonitions, Tanjiro left. The Hashira training commenced. Every Hashira partook, even Kyu, who was more or less against it, thinking that he wasn't a real Hashira, yet he got encouraged by Tanjiro to talk things out with him. Tanjiro was the last Hashira that Slayers had to go through. Getting to him seemed impossible to most people. Tanjiro would train himself to the extreme whilst waiting for people to arrive. He had two goals. One was to replicate the dimension door ability that Akaza had escaped through. The other was to gain full control over his God Eyes form, that being the name the other Hashira dubbed it. 3 days into his training, the first Slayer arrived to take his training. Looking over, he'd see Nezuko. He had been so busy with Hashira work and gaining strength that he hardly saw his sister. He ran over and hugged her. She reciprocated this hug warmly. "You've gotten so strong, I'm surprised you got here so fast," Tanjiro said, patting his sister. She smiled at his acknowledgement. "Let's start the training, brother," Nezuko said with a reaffirming look of determination. "Alright, come at me," Tanjiro said, much to Nezuko's astonishment. Tanjiro held his Nitrin blade. It was still in its scabbard, and the first part of his training was assessment. He'd make sure the training that the Slayers got from the other Hashira was actually effective, and if it held an impact on the Slayers. He'd also attack open parts of the Slayers as they attacked him. This was simply to show them their flaws and where they would have to try not to have openings. Getting to Tanjiro was a real hassle, however, as his training location was located on top of a tall mountain, where the air, just like on Mount Sagiri, was very thin, making it hard to breathe. The entire purpose of this was to get the Slayers used to their explosive growth that they had undergone in that small time. Nezuko rushed at her brother. Her stance was almost perfect, so Tanjiro hit her where the stance couldn't improve. Their fight ended after 10 minutes. Nezuko did amazingly well, on the level of a Hashira, Tanjiro thought to himself, so he moved on to part 2 of his training with her passing passing her on Part 1. Part 2 of his training was led by Gyutaro and Ume, who were also there. They had trained under Tanjiro and received his teachings. They knew best how to assist others to grasp the concept Tanjiro had put out for them. They trained each slayer differently that arrived, but most had to go through a relentless fury of attacks, their goal being to awaken their demon slayer marks. Not only that, but to also increase the slayers in every aspect. If each Hashira focused on one part, Tanjiro's training was designed to explosively grow each aspect in that regard. Nezuko got past Part 2 of his training after a day. The last part of Tanjiro's training was precision. An unwavering focus and godly precision were his aim. This would either awaken one of two things in the Slayer, the transparent world or the crimson red Nichiren sword everyone desired. Nezuko passed his training in half a day. Meanwhile, Tanjiro continued his training whilst Nezuko went to spar with some of the other Hashira to test her progress. It took another 2 days for somebody to reach Tanjiro again. Between all the Hashira, almost no one succeeded. Only the most tenacious would reach Tanjiro. So it was a real surprise when Tanjiro saw both Inosuke and Zenitsu arrive. They went through Tanjiro's training, and Zenitsu had a scent of anger on him, which Tanjiro noticed. It made his training quite effective. He finished before Inosuke a day ahead. 6 more days would pass, and where Tanjiro trained another 12 people. Today was the day that Ubuyashiki had prophesied. So Tanjiro prepared himself, yet he didn't sense Muzan's energy at all. In fact, another week passed and nothing had happened. The training continued as planned, but Tanjiro didn't like this one bit. Whilst training some slayers, all the Hashira came up the mountain towards Tanjiro. "What's up, guys?" Tanjiro asked them. However, they stood quietly. From left to right stood Tengen, Rengoku, Muichiro, Mitsuri, Giyu, Shinobu, Gyomei, Sanemi, and Obanai. Next to either sides of the Hashira stood some of the stronger slayers that had already passed Tanjiro's training, including Nezuko, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Kanoe. "Tanjiro, you haven't sparred with any Hashira yet. Thinking about it, it made sense. You are so far ahead of us that we can't fight you one-on-one. So we have decided to come all at you at the same time," Rengoku said with a grandiose posture, yet a calm demeanor, unusual of him. All the Hashira unsheathed their blades. The Tsugoku and other slayer amongst them did the same. This was problematic, but Tanjiro liked the challenge. "It would be discourteous of me not to accept this," Tanjiro said as he unsheathed his blade as well. Both sides stood quietly as they in an instant rushed at each other. Tengen and Gyomei came in, and as they both rushed in for a frontal attack. Gyomei's mace got deflected by Tanjiro, however he had to parry the blow from both Tengen's swords and Gyomei's axes. Before he was able to deflect the blow, Shinobu had rushed behind Tanjiro as she prepared to stab him, although Tanjiro curved his body in a way where he only got scratched. He took this chance to deflect Gyomei and Tengen's sword clash, as he did a rotary slash using moon breathing, sending them back. Not getting the chance to breathe, however, Kyojiro, Mitsuri, and Nezuko, and Sanemi all rushed in, using forms of their breathing individually. Kyojiro came in with an ultimate move right from the start, his 9th form of flame breathing, Rengoku, which landed a devastating frontal blow to Tanjiro, who was still able to block it, yet why was he not able to deflect the attack? He felt a bit drowsy. That's when it hit him that Shinobu used a poison to attack him. He didn't sense any poison entering his body, though. Not wasting a second, Sanemi came in and with an Ida-10 Typhoon, whilst Mitsuri used her 1st form of love breathing. And Nezuko surprisingly used Hinokami Kagura. All these attacks came to Tanjiro's blind spots. One of his eyes turned red as he deflected Kyojiro's attack and started blocking the other attacks at a speed that the other Hashira couldn't follow. Moon breathing, 2nd form, pearl flower moon gazing, Tanjiro would say, releasing many crescent-shaped slashes towards the other Hashira. However, a wound would appear on Tanjiro's chest, a deep cut. Zenitsu had taken this chance to unleash his full speed, attacking Tanjiro, who hadn't noticed him. Obanai had also prepared a sneak attack, as he had hit Tanjiro in the side. Tanjiro healed up really quickly as he got into another stance. Before he could unleash an attack, though, both Tengen and Inosuke came in this time, using their blades to hold Tanjiro down. As he was about to kick them away, Muichiro came in and slashed right at Tanjiro. He would have been able to block the attack if Gyu hadn't intervened. The fight continued even when Tanjiro got hit, as he simply healed. But what was happening? Tanjiro was getting overpowered easier and easier. Was it the poison? No, that couldn't be, because he had already digested it a while ago. It could have been the Hashira's teamwork, as they were perfectly intercepting him every time, but he had sparred with them before. This couldn't have been it, right? Had he simply grown weaker? Tanjiro getting pushed into a corner awakened something inside of him. His eyes flared up as they turned crimson red and started bleeding. His eye color had changed to something that hadn't happened before. His mark lit up as well, as it was actually on fire. Tanjiro started fighting back more ferociously, though more wild and not as refined as he usually fought. He had gone into a semi-berserk state. His power may have explosively grown, but the lack of proper precision really cost him, as he was even easier to dodge and combo. Tanjiro was getting mad at his own weakness. How could he let himself get overpowered? At the moment, he didn't have the thought of his friends in mind. It felt like he was drowning, and he hated it. The Hashira had prepared another attack. However, before they could arrive at Tanjiro, a massive energy wave pushed them back. The atmosphere went tense, and a light laughter could be heard. Dust was everywhere, but when it settled, a most terrifying sight appeared before the Hashira. Tanjiro had grown a horn. His sword laid on the ground, and his nails had become sharp claws. His teeth had grown, and his mark had become black, yet it still looked like it was on fire. Some people were terrified simply because they knew that Tanjiro had gone berserk. He was, after all, laughing maniacally. Some of the Hashira stepped into action right away, as they rushed at Tanjiro. However, they got swatted away like flies. Shinobu tried to talk sense into Tanjiro, however, he was completely out of it. All the Hashira decided it would be best to subdue him right now, as they all rushed at him together. Nezuko, Zenitsu, Kanoe, and Inosuke didn't sit still either, rushing at Tanjiro. They got hit by another energy wave, knocking most of them down. Without realizing it, they had all been hit by Tanjiro's attack, though all minor wounds. Meanwhile, Tanjiro was struggling within his own mind. The thoughts of being weak and non-reliant dawned on him. How could he defeat Muzan if he couldn't handle the Hashira or his own demonic powers? He was despairing. For the second time in his life he felt despair, and he was sinking in it. A thick water was engulfing him. Before being fully submerged, he'd be dragged out. His mother stood there amongst his brothers and sisters. He went to hug them, but they disappeared as he fell. He got back up to see that the scenery from before, the infinite swamp, had disappeared. Around him stood a field of flowers. Was this a memory, Tanjiro thought? He walked through the field, finding two tall men standing there. Father? Tanjiro yelled out as he ran towards his father, yet again phasing right through him. Brother, we have made no progress in beating the demons, and even more infuriating is that nobody seems to be able to learn our breathing styles, Kokushibo would say. Michikatsu, I'm sure that one day one of our descendants will be able to learn our breathing technique. After all, time doesn't stand still for anyone. The younger-looking man said, as he resembled Tanjiro's father a lot, yet he looked like a plant, was Tanjiro's thought. He was a user of the see-through world. That was certain, Tanjiro knew. Michikatsu stomped off. He was agitated. I'm sure that the person who inherits our breathing techniques will be able to surpass us, the younger man said with a sigh. Tanjiro remembered a tale of his father. He had told him about his younger brother, Yoruichi. Was this Yoruichi? Tanjiro thought, but yet again he was moved to another scene. It was a vast sea that he was standing on. Nothing surrounded him. If he remembered correctly, this was his subconscious where his soul resided. What was happening? On the outside, the Hashira had pinned down Tanjiro and were trying to knock him out by choking him. On the inside, however, he was following these little spirits. Thoughts ran towards his mind at insane speeds, berating himself. He kept calling himself weak and an imitator. If he was really a descendant from the Tsujikuni clan, why couldn't he make his own breathing style? Whilst moon breathing was greatly suitable to Tanjiro, it wasn't perfect. Neither was the Hinokami Kagura or the so-called sun breathing. It just didn't fit him either. Tanjiro came face to face with a wall. The spirits turned around as they started walking away in a direction headed to a black sun. It was burning quietly, but Tanjiro could feel the heat just from looking at it. He turned once more facing the wall, as he put his hand on it and walked through, casting away any doubts. It was the memory he had with his father, the same one Enmu had shown him. But was this truly a memory? It felt more like a dream whilst not feeling like one. He couldn't describe the feeling. Tanjiro walked to the lake to see his reflection, seeing his current self with his horn and sharp teeth. Did I become a demon? Tanjiro thought to himself. He turned around once more to see his father, yet he was gone. Instead he saw himself, younger but still there. It didn't dawn on him how much he had changed. He had become much taller and stronger than he was in the past. You idiot, have you forgotten your goal? How could you fall to despair at a time like this? The younger version of himself yelled out, rushing at him and punching him in the face. Whilst the punch didn't hurt, it sent Tanjiro in the air, and although he was only in the air for a few seconds, he remembered. He remembered everything. His happy family that got torn apart, the taunting Akaza did, the torment he felt after losing his siblings, and his goal of saving his father and destroying Kibutsuji Muzan. He had fallen into the river. His younger self stood above him and looked down on him with a pleasant look. The real challenge starts now. So fight! On the outside, they were about to decapitate Tanjiro because he was growing another horn. However, a bright light shone from him. The Hashira that were holding him down had all been sent flying, though not far. They all watched as Tanjiro's figure engulfed in a bright light walked towards where his blade was. He came to a stop in front of the blade. The light began to dim down until it fully dissipated. For a moment everyone stood still as they saw Tanjiro, who had grown a bit taller once more. His hair had also changed. It had become a bit longer, yet Tanjiro's expression remained calm. His eyes had returned to normal, and although there wasn't a big change, everybody could tell that he was completely different from before. His eyes had become a bit more reddish, almost crimson, but not quite. He extended his hand, and his blade returned to his hand in an instant. He pointed his sword at the Hashira. All of them were in rather good condition, only having some small cuts or bruises. "Come at me," Tanjiro said in a calm yet threatening tone. The Hashira proceeded to just do that, all at once. Nezuko, Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Kanoe joined in as well, being followed by the Tsugoku. They were all within striking distance of Tanjiro, as they all focused their entire being on the attack. The atmosphere made them feel like if they slipped up they would die. Tanjiro took a stance none of the Hashira recognized. Not even Gyutaro, who had learned the most of the forms of sun-breathing, recognized this stance. Eclipse breathing. First form. First quarter death parade. Tanjiro said as he zoomed past all the Hashira. Everybody got knocked out in an instant. Gyutaro looked a bit closer at Tanjiro and realized he had hit everybody with the blunt side of his sword. Tanjiro sheathed his weapon and left. 5 minutes after Tanjiro had left, Gyomei, the strongest Hashira, got up. When asked if he was alright, he explained what had happened. Gyomei was blind, so he couldn't see the attack, but his other senses were enhanced to the point where he couldn't reach any higher ground. He explained that Tanjiro didn't even hit them. A force-like pressure hit them, the force of which felt to Gyomei like a train hitting him. He has reached an even higher plane than before, Gyomei said, trying to catch his breath. The other Hashira began waking up. Shinobu woke up exclaiming how cool and handsome Tanjiro was. The other Hashira looked at her with a dumbfounded expression. They weren't used to Shinobu fangirling over someone. Mitsuru helped Shinobu up as they both started talking about how cool Tanjiro's new breathing was, and how amazing it was to have someone as reliable as him on their side. When Nezuko woke up, she joined in, and most of the Slayers started chatting about his strength and elegance. The other Hashira joined in as well. Gyome and Sanemi started a chain of conversation discussing how they themselves could improve or get stronger by taking his example, whilst Open-Eye didn't join in. He seemed rather angry that Mitsuru was falling in love with Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Tanjiro arrived at Ubuyashiki's mansion, where he only said one sentence: "I can make the gates that lead to Muzan." This changed the entirety of Ubuyashiki's plans, as he sent out an order right away. The crows started flying around spreading the word. Their commence on the Infinity Council would commence within 3 weeks. This riled up the Slayers, who started training harder. The Hashira did the same. Everybody trained with Tanjiro multiple times to get way stronger. The day of reckoning came. But what happened, we'll have to wait until the next time. I hope you lovely cubs enjoyed this part. Sorry for the cliffhanger, but once again, the next and final part will be way bigger than any part that I've released so far. At least I think it will be, because, well, I've got a lot to go over. If you guys enjoyed it, why don't you like and subscribe? It shows me that you care. And anyway, join the Discord, and yeah, join the Roblox group if you play Roblox at all. We are releasing more and more in the store there. And yeah, I'll be doing a lot of streams in September, so look out for that. With that out of the way, my name is the Dragon Lord, and I am signing out.